9 Tips on how to become a better storyteller. The art of storytelling is a powerful tool. You can master your storytelling technique to help create meaningful connections. Get ready to tell a good story, one word at a time. Know your audience. There are plenty of types of stories that you can tell. Depending on the audience, some stories will be better received than others. I was at a comedy club a few months ago with my husband, my sister, and my brother-in-law. It was a local show where 3 different comedians took to the stage with their sets. The first comedian was the least experienced of the 3 performers. He mentioned at the beginning of his show that he'd only been doing stand-up for the last year or so he'd be trying out some stuff on us. Some jokes landed better than others. In real time, he acknowledged his success or lack thereof. For example, when one joke got the audience roaring with laughter, he commented, "Oh, so I should take my jokes in that direction, huh?" He was getting real-time feedback from the audience. He was getting a pulse on what the audience liked, what the audience didn't like, and how his stories would be received. While you might not be doing stand-up, you'll want to employ this same sort of strategy in your storytelling. What do you know about your audience? What context clues or information can you gather? How will you adjust and shape your story based on your audience? 2. Think about the goal of your story. Every story has some sort of goal, whether you recognize it or not. The best storytellers fashion their stories with the desired end result in mind. For some, it might be to make the audience laugh like comedians. For others, it might be to help drive behavior change. For others, it might be to help educate or drive awareness about a specific issue. Consider your audience and then think about your goal. What message do you want to send to an audience member? Beyond capturing your audience's attention, what takeaway do you want them to walk away with? 3. Choose the right time and the right place. I can tell you from personal experience that every story has the right time and the right place. Stories aren't always appropriate in the right setting, and stories need to have the right voice. I went to a wedding last summer in Boston. The bride and the groom had asked close friends and family members to share stories about the couple at the rehearsal dinner and the reception. They'd hand-picked people who knew their personal stories that would be fitting for the wedding ceremony. However, one extended family member got a hold of the microphone. She told a long-winded story about the bride's family but made no mention of the groom. Her story was one about the bride's family history, traditions, and even tales from her wedding. Let's be real, it was awkward. It was a lovely story, but it wasn't the right time or place. Every storytelling experience has the right time and place. Lean on your emotional intelligence skills to figure out if the story will land well for when and where you want to tell it. 4. Use a hook to get your audience's attention. Have you ever heard a story that you might not have realized was a story? Maybe halfway through the story, you're racking your brain around what the story is about. In writing, we call this the hook or the lead of the story. What is it that will capture your audience's attention? What will keep them engaged and interested in the story? Is there a good hook to the story? Think of ways you can creatively present your information that will keep your audience absorbed. By employing this storytelling technique, you'll be sure to captivate your audience. 5. Be clear and concise. I know that I'm guilty of this when I tell oral stories. Sometimes, I can get long-winded and drone on and on. I add details that aren't pertinent to the story that I'm telling. Or I go off on a tangent that doesn't really have anything to do with the story I'm trying to tell. Well, take it from me, it doesn't work. Be as clear and concise as you can with your story. Try asking yourself what details are important for the reader or the listener to understand. If they're not critical to the story, why are you including them? What about those details make it a more compelling story? As best you can, try to filter out what information is must-have versus nice-to-have. 6. Get personal. Personal experiences are just that, they're personal. It can feel vulnerable and sometimes scary to share personal details about your own life. But here's the thing, real-life stories are impactful. It's a big driver of connection. And by getting personal, you're better positioned to reach the goal that you've identified for yourself. Think about ways you can incorporate personal details into your story. For example, I was fundraising for NAMI while I was training for the New York City Marathon. I really felt passionate about the cause, but I wasn't sharing much detail about why I cared about this organization. Once I shared my personal story about my family and my own experience with NAMI, people started to donate to my page. It helped to share those personal bits to achieve my goal. And it opened up new connections for me. People reached out and wanted to share their own stories about mental health. All in all, it was a win-win situation. 7. Be aware of your body language. Body language is big. It can send messages to your audience about your demeanor, your attitude, and your approachability. If you're telling a funny story with a scowl on your face and your arms crossed, your audience might not know it's supposed to be a funny story. If you're working on your public speaking skills but never make eye contact, your audience might not connect with you. Try to tap into your awareness. What body language are you using? How can you use body language to your advantage as a storyteller? 8. Practice often. As the saying goes, practice makes perfect. Well, we may not believe in total perfection at Better Up. But we do believe in practice. At its core, practice is about learning. It's about getting up close and personal with your mistakes and adjusting. It's about trial and error, figuring out what works and what doesn't. So, don't be afraid to make mistakes. You can always learn from your failures. But do practice and practice often. 9. Ask for feedback. This last tip is a vulnerable one. You might want to get advice or feedback from a trusted confidant. I've practiced my public speaking skills with my coach. I know that I can lean on her to help me refine my communication skills, which include how I present a story. You can lean on a mentor, a colleague, a teammate, or a friend. Whoever it is, make sure that you ask for feedback from someone you trust. Feedback is an opportunity for us to grow. And feedback means that the person cares about you because they want to see you succeed. They want you to have your own success story. Don't be afraid to ask for feedback.